All right, we're going to look directly at Bill Gates. We're going to look directly at a timeline. And what you're going to see is an individual who is leading the world in a planned out, premeditated solution to an engineered, man-made problem. He announces the problem 5 years before the rollout in 2020. So you have 5 years to prepare for what you say is the most dangerous threat ever. So if you have 5 years and you knew it was going to happen, when you start seeing it unfold, how is your only plan to vaccinate? The only plan that they're offering while not even addressing how it got unleashed to the public. We don't want to talk about where it started, where it originated. Is it man-made? And then he's going to make a statement that it could potentially be man-made. 5 years before he said a disaster, man-made or not. So you need to tell me that this has a potential to be man-made and nobody's investigating. And then the only solution is to vaccinate. There's no other way to deal with a health issue. Nobody else is concerned about the whole world being in unison when we already have a model in Africa, the Ebola virus, that's identical. And we have a model where countries came together, had never seen it before, they didn't know it before, and they stopped it from becoming a global pandemic without any of the resources that Bill Gates and the West have, without any of the vaccines, without any of the billions of money. So you mean to tell me a group of third world countries came together and prevented a global pandemic, and now they're telling you that the only way, now that the West has allowed a global pandemic to happen, trust us, trust us, trust us, we have the solution. And what is this solution going to do? Help you manage new virus after new virus, new strain after new strain? Their plan is not to put down, stop from spreading, and prevent a pandemic, let alone, you don't hear about multiple Ebola strains. You don't hear about a Ebola pandemic. The West has one. And now the West is trying to tell the people in Africa that they have to take the vaccine. Africa already proved that they're better. The third world countries already proved that they're better at that their system that they created is better than the one that the West rolled out. So why are we following a blueprint from the West when the West obviously has done a poorer job than the third world countries that went through this in 2015? We're going to listen. I'm going to let y'all listen in his own words. State that the greatest threat is a man-made or natural disaster. Man-made? Okay. Watch this. Watch this. But because you don't have a system in place to hold Europeans accountable, the Europeans on every level say that they are too big to fail and they are above any law. So they have no fear in they have no fear in doing public experiments where more than 3 million people will lose their life. And because you don't know how to come together on anything, they willing to just say anything and do anything and like, yo, what you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? Nothing. This is exactly what he's saying to you. And then I'm gonna tell you, not only do we have a system to hold them accountable, we in the process of presenting all of the truth about this crime against divinity and then collecting the reparations. It's called the RICO statutes. Yo, where is it at? Yo, serious. Oh, man.
Capital One Santa Card. You are unlimited 4% cash back on dining or ordering now. 4% back at grocery stores. Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Excess deaths in an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess. I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths. I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths. I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths. And that it's pretty surprising how little preparedness there is for it. I think an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths. And that it's pretty surprising how little preparedness there is for it.
I'm gonna play it again. I'm gonna play it again. I'm gonna play it again.
An epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most. An epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is an epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths. An epidemic, either naturally caused or intentionally caused, is the most likely thing to cause, say, 10 million excess deaths.
Who would intentionally cause an epidemic that would cause 10 million deaths? Maybe somebody that goes around Africa with polio vaccines for 15 years prior to the COVID and tells third world countries through the World Health Organization, if you want food aid assistance, if you want to eat, then you have to get sterilized and take our polio vaccine. Who would intentionally? Who would have the money to intentionally cause an epidemic that could take 10 million lives? Only a so-called philanthropist that invests in vaccines, huh? So you control all of the labs with your $135+ billion, and then y'all pledged, Warren Buffett and you pledged around the same time to give half of your wealth. So if you give half of $135 billion to philanthropy, and your giving is to the science research that goes into creating the vaccines, the cause, and the cure that you're going to profit off of. Understand the same scientific research laboratories that he controlled with his philanthropic giving. When these countries buy 10 million doses of the vaccine, oh, they're paying. So now you also profiting off of. This man stated 5 years before, this is 5 years before the whole joint. Understand, they're sitting back right now during this time watching the Ebola epidemic. They sent no aid, no research. They sat back and studied. So what did they study in 2015 when they watched the Ebola? They saw how quick the people put it down. These individuals were not studying how to prevent deaths from happening. They sat back and studied how they could capitalize and monetize a global pandemic. They sat back and crunched the numbers. Remember, this is capitalism. monopoly. And when there's no court in the land that can hold you accountable, when the federal government has put you in a position and has painted this fake darling picture of these Revenge of the Nerd clowns, who holds individuals, philanthropists, accountable when they tinker with human life and life is lost? Who holds them accountable when they're connected to the World Health Organization and individuals have been dying from their polio vaccines and becoming sterilized? Where do third world country people have recourse when you claim you're going to give me a malaria vaccine and now my daughter is sterile and can't have children no more? Where do the people in Zimbabwe go? Where do mothers, where do daughters go in Kenya when Bill and Melinda Gates come and stick them with polio and 300,000 people die? And then they take those numbers and say, oh, okay, 300,000. That's nothing. He stated 10 million. Right now they at 3 million. They nowhere close to their goal. He stated 10 million deaths.
And that it's pretty surprising how little preparedness there is for it. Now it's tricky because this is a global problem.
He's saying y'all not even prepared for this attack. Y'all ain't even prepared.
How do countries work together? Which countries should put up what resources? And every aspect of it.
So you mean to tell me the European world didn't put up any assets, any money when the Ebola happened in West Africa? No money. Yet it was prevented from becoming a global pandemic. Then they studied all of these numbers from 2015 until 2019. And then when it happens in China, they sit back and they watch it and they watch it. They don't do anything. They know from the Ebola experience that you got to jump on it. You got to prevent it from spreading. You got to sterilize the people. You got to move the bodies. They know exactly what has to be done to prevent it from going from a pandemic. They have the information. So the only way that it went from an epidemic to a pandemic is because the Western world, with all of its resources, wanted it to go to a global pandemic. The only way that it moved out of China is because the West wanted it to move out of China. If the West wanted to shut it down and shut down China, they would have locked China down and sat back and watched China. China's supposed to be a competitor on the world stage, and China's supposed to be this economic powerhouse. China is trying to figure out how they could muscle into Africa. And you mean to tell me that the West sat back and let China spread to all over the globe? And bring death to millions. And they watched it. They watched it in the US. And when it got into the US, they could have implemented. They had a billion more resources, billion more hospitals, way more money in the US, even when it got to the US. Based off what they watched happen they already know how to, so when you have better resources and you already have a track record, you know that they prevented it from spreading. This next video right here, this video right here. Last October, we ran a massive simulation. Last October, we ran a massive simulation on a viral disease outbreak. Here's what we learned. Experts have long warned about the threat of a global pandemic. Those experts are Bill Gates. This is 2019. This is October 2019. November, December, January. When they was doing the simulation, it probably was already leaked in China. And they knew it. And governments and organizations have tried to plan for it. So in October 2019, we ran a simulation in New York called Event 201.
These epidemic events are getting more and more disruptive to health and to economy. And the reason we called it Event 201 is we knew eventually one of these days, one of those events would be the big one. And that big one would really challenge our capacity to respond. And to respond to the big one, we do need to have all hands on deck.
Why? Africa didn't have all hands on deck, and it didn't go to a pandemic. Y'all had all hands on deck. So the fact that it went to a global pandemic, you with your simulations and your money sat back and watched, just like they sat back and watched syphilis ravage Tuskegee experiment. Not only did they introduce the syphilis to the individuals in the studies, they gave them the disease that they watched them die from. Huh? Meaning, they've committed this crime before. They are already guilty of this atrocity before. This is just the first time that they've done it on a global scale with millions of individuals. They have now crossed into RICO genocide. Mocked up news reports predict the effects of an outbreak. They knew exactly what the public encouraged to join in via a virtual forum.
Participants are confronted by a hypothetical scenario that presents to them the challenges of a response. So we will say, here's
You didn't have to do a hypothetical because y'all watched Ebola in Africa. They already knew how to respond, listen. It was too easy to shut down China, stamp it right there, and if it did cross, listen, it was too easy. And the fact that they still manipulating you, they're using this and they're capitalizing off of the fear, off of the panic. They're capitalizing financially. They're capitalizing in the stock market. They're capitalizing in you huddling down in your houses while they're doing wealth. Listen, this is a crime. And the only way that they will pay is if you stop being little sheep led to the slaughter, allowing them to say, I am above the law and I am too big to fail. And there is nothing and no one to hold me accountable. So we Europeans who say we are superior, we have a caste system that says we are the upper class and you guys are the untouchable, and whatever we do to you, you just got to take it. And until in masses, just like you in masses are going and lining up for whatever it is they say, when you in masses stand up, that's the first time in your life you're going to demonstrate. Not listen, black sellouts have always manipulated y'all to go and destroy and go and march for nothing. You protesting and you rioting, talking about give us, you listen, you take freedom just like they take slaves. Freedom has to be taken like your life has been taken. When somebody takes from you, you take it back. Take ownership back. You go and you asking somebody to acknowledge your ability to be free. That in and of itself says you own me. If I come to you and say, can you please acknowledge that I'm free? Why should anybody acknowledge that you're free when you just acknowledge that they own you? Unless they no longer want to capitalize off of the ownership, why in the world would they free you? Burn the stuff down. I'm going to throw you in my jail with my judges and continue on profiting off of you and your kids. What's the solution? Every black person, every European person, anybody that has ever contributed and ever supported these systems, DC, the banking, the present day systems, all have to be destroyed, abandoned. That means the individuals who determine wages, who can live where, they determine the value of your appraisals. The Europeans who have manipulated home prices, home markets, listen, none of their banks who have been around from the slave era till now, zero of them not doing no mortgage with you. We no longer acknowledge blood money. Nowhere. That's the only way you take freedom. And how do you do that? How do you do that? Same way David did. This Saul's kingdom is over with. His economy, David put in a whole new nation overnight. Overnight. You change the military, you change the bankers, you change the teachers, you issue new currency that nobody outside your nation has. We don't need to trade with nobody else. We can produce our own food. We got access to our own water. We can make our own clothes. We could start our own businesses. All of the roads in our country, listen, we fly where we want to go. We travel how we want to travel. We do business with only those who live the lifestyles that we live as a nation. Washington, D.C. and the U.S. is not the USA. They claim that it is New England.
There's a hypothetical disease outbreak. This is the way it might be evolving.
These people don't get to speak at all.
That you'll have to address
These people don't exist at all.
The disruptions that you're seeing to your healthcare system or to your organization.
None of these people, they will go back to Ireland. They will go back to the Bohemian Groves. They will go back to the Caucasus Mountains. They will go back.
All stakeholders realize pretty quickly just how underprepared we are.
They will go back to their Braveheart feudal slavery under Longshanks, British fake kings. They are masquerading like they are people of importance and authority when the whole world seeing that 90% of Europeans were all peasants. So now, because they done come to here and they done say, yo, black people over here, we're going to make them be the peasants that we was in the old world. You crazy? This is the only thing that they saying. All of the Hollywood studios over with. All of they television studios, all of the telephone companies over with. Over with. Overnight. For this violation,
how much is possible when we work together, and that the individual actions of any government or company won't add up to a proper global response. I think if we're honest with ourselves, collectively, the international community has never done enough to respond to global health security challenges.
Europeans don't have nothing to say on health. European nations have never been able to survive because their lifestyle is unnatural and an abomination. Period. Where's Rome? Abominations. Where's Greece? Abominations. Where's the Germanic barbarian tribes? The Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, they changed their name to Spain, Greek. Where's the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths and the Vandals and the Hurleys and the Sueves? Huh? Where they at? You're like, who is that? That's the original barbarian. They changed their names to Spain, Britain. Where's the Ostrogoths and the Vistals and the Vandals? Those are the individuals that was crushed by the kingdoms of Kush. Those are the kingdoms. Those are the kingdoms that was so scared to come down into the continent that y'all call Africa now, that they had to change their names. So you think cause this man called himself white, now they got a catch-all phrase. We white. No, you the Vandal, you the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths and the Vandals, barbarians, trying to act like you. And come on, man. Let's get some definitions for you. Let's get some definitions for you. Let's talk about knowledge. Let's talk about let's define acquiescence. What is acquiescence? To accept something reluctantly but without protest. To give one's consent. Acquiesce means to accept, to agree, to give consent by keeping silent. Acquiescence. You give consent, you give permission. When you keep silent, then you agree that they are above the law. This is the Oxford language. So the British say, this is Oxford language. They like, whenever you do this, whenever you keep silent and you sit silently by, watch this, watch this, watch this. Watch this. This is the same British. It says Oxford language. This is the same British telling you that they know they aren't superior, that they know they don't have authority, but because you don't know how to claim your title as an heir, then they will capitalize on your ignorance. And you give them consent by your silence. Because to stake your claim that you're an heir, you have to verbally declare and stake your claim. An heir whose claim cannot be set aside by the birth of another heir is an heir apparent. It don't matter how many children Queen Elizabeth had. The heirs that were first and created kingdoms, Iraq and Iran, were not created by Arabs. They just renamed the Persian Empire Iran. Our ancestors physically built the Persian Empire and ruled as kings. So the United Nations or the European Union acknowledging Iran as a nation, in their definition, those Arab nations can never, ever supersede the heir apparents that built Persia. The heir apparent is an heir whose claim the people who actually did the building is the heir apparent. The hermit crabs the scavengers that have moved in. This is saying they have no claim. An heir whose claim cannot be set aside by the birth of another heir. A person who is most likely to succeed in the place of another. He was once considered heir apparent to the throne. Same thing with Iraq. Iraq is the kingdom of Babylon. There is no greater example of Cush than Babylon and Persia, Iraq and Iran. What's an heir presumptive? Queen Elizabeth. And the throne and the so-called throne in England is an heir presumptive. What's another heir presumptive? The Vatican and its so-called triple crown that the Pope wears. That's an heir presumptive. Because Rome didn't build any nations. Rome didn't build Babylon or Iraq. They sent governors to govern over it after our people no longer wanted it any longer. What's an heir presumptive? An heir whose claim could be set aside by the birth of another heir. So what are they talking about? They're talking about the true Messiah. They're talking about the true Messiah. So these earthly kingdoms that's in rebellion to God and the Creator, who's still talking about they're looking forward to a Messiah, they are acknowledging that when the true heir to the throne shows up, the masquerade is over. An heir presumptive are these Western colonial powers, heirs who claim could be set aside by the birth of another heir. So when our wives give birth to children of the birthright and the first fruit blessing, when you know how to stake your claim as the first fruit and the birthright, they have already acknowledged when you know how to claim first fruit blessings and birthright blessings, which we're going to teach y'all after the Day of Atonement, September the 15th. When you know how to implement that the English, the British, who rule the world and the world is in ignorance, they say, yo, as soon as you consecrate your children and then come back and claim the throne, Queen Elizabeth saying, they telling you in the Oxford Dictionary, I got to step down. An heir whose claim could be set aside. I'm already telling y'all, I've already put my wife and my daughters on the throne of Queen Elizabeth. I've already put my sons on the fake throne that the Vatican claims that they sit on. And my grandchildren, my grandchildren's children will be the princes and princesses, kings and queens of Salem, kings and queens of Assyria. These are kingdoms in the word of God that God said will judge this final generation. The men of Nineveh, Assyria is the headquarters of Nineveh, will judge this final generation. The Queen of Sheba will judge this final generation. This is telling you that when the Queen of Sheba shows up, the European world has to bow. This is the Oxford Dictionary. This is them admitting that they are the heir presumptive, when an heir whose claim could be set aside by the birth of a more superior heir. So, who is this Bill Gates dude? They saying as long as y'all acknowledging, as long as y'all letting us play this game that we are superiority, then we got individuals who willing to do the dirty work of Western capitalism. When you not ready to claim your abundant life, this is capitalism. Pure and simple.
Just private landowner in America owns two. Bill Gates.
This is straight up capitalism. While you hunker down and you asking for bailouts and you looking for stimulus checks. Let me show you what the man that I already showed you. Let me show you what the man I already showed you. How you doing, Glenda? Let me show you. Listen, so when you in court, for you to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, you got to show that there's motive to a crime. And the number way to show motive is to show where the individual profited from doing the crime. So he already stated in his own mouth that in 2015 that the potential for killing 10 million people, the greatest potential is he said, a man-made or a natural pandemic. Well, who the heck would make a man-made pandemic? Who on earth? Why would that even be an option? Who on earth would create a man-made pandemic? Who would create something that has the potential of killing 10 million? What ignorant, diabolical fool? Because this is what he has invested in. Individuals working around the clock, tinkering in biological labs, making biological weapons of mass destruction. And for years they would test it in animals and it wouldn't take in humans. So it was a failure for years. And then they finally manipulated it to where it would take in humans and do the damage. So then for you to say in 2015, we're at a point where there is a threat. There is a real threat of a man-made or natural disaster, pandemic, killing what? Now he gonna show you, now that they done unleashed it, and they telling you, yo, you got a social distance and you can't move around. Now they running around buying up. Now here's the motive. Now here's the motive in the crime. Now here is Western capitalism. Now this is Adolf Hitler's Germany all over again. Yo, I'm telling y'all, this is the same playbook that Hitler did. This is the same exact playbook. And Hitler's design was to rule the world. And these individuals are the relatives, the offspring. Hitler had a team of scientists that created the gas chamber gas mask that allowed them to kill millions at one time. Listen, these are the same people, y'all. The only difference is y'all believe that the United States fought against Hitler when Hitler simply changed his address. The fascists from Germany simply changed their address from Germany to the US. That's the only thing that happened in World War I and World War II. The Europeans could have no prosperity. And the only place where chattel slavery allowed the one spot in the world to become a financial economic superpower, they all wanted to leave that worthless wasteland called Europe and come here and use their same ideologies. And now that the US is no longer acting like they are against the fascists, because they've never been against their family members, who is your protection? The creator of heaven and earth that told you, you be fruitful and multiply. Replenish the earth. Recreate and make new the earth. And you subdue the earth. So if you had the ability to subdue the earth, you have the ability to subdue the rebels. Subdue the earth is the same thing that Noah had the ability to do, to go and call all of the animals, get in order, clean animals, we're going to take 7 of y'all. Unclean, just 1 pair. And listen, every single clean animal lined up. This is what subdue the earth means. The children who belong to the creator are the only ones that have the authority on earth to rule.
Owns more land than all of the entire city of New York. Bill Gates owns more land than all of the entire city of New York. Jeff Bezos' land is double the amount, clocking in at 420,000 acres. John Malone, the largest private landowner in America, owns 2.2 million acres all by himself, a landmass slightly smaller than the island of Puerto Rico. America is enormous, yet 100 of the richest and largest private landowners in America own 1.86% of all the land available in the United States, the majority of their land being forests, ranches, and farmland.
Some people like myself find farms beautiful and peaceful and a nice place to live.
Land is only getting more valuable. In the mid-1990s, farmland was valued at...
So this whole farce about climate change and this whole farce about the populate, what they are saying is the people of color, they outnumber us and we don't have systems in place to control them anymore. There's millions and millions of acres of land. There's millions and millions of streams of running water. What they're saying is we no longer have control over the populations of the world. We no longer can fake like we have white supremacy, and that is our problem. So they're making artificial, manufactured, chaotic issues for you to give them back control and superiority over your, because you haven't put in your own systems of dominion that God commanded you to rule over. What? Did not the Pharaoh, Joseph put in a system that in 14 years, just 14 years, he was in prison, he brought out of prison, God revealed to him, not the Pharaoh, the way to make Egypt the financial superpower of the world. And it could only happen through the heir that God chose to reveal the plan to. When the Pharaoh was in line with God and God's chosen servant, the nation and the world prospered. And in 14 years, they put in the plan. And when the natural disaster of a famine, so we can handle natural and supernatural disasters. What we will not accept is man-made, which Bill Gates told you he is in a criminal conspiracy and now he is profiting. And they standing back saying, if we don't have white supremacy, you would do something about it. If we aren't superior to you and you aren't subhuman, you would do something about this violation. But because they have called you human, understand, when you accept the title of human, you accept the title of subhuman. When you accept the label of human, their police that enforce, when they say serve and protect, their police are human. Their military systems are human. Their educational system are run by humans. And the victims that are being capitalized on are subhuman. God said, let us create the divine. The word that he used in Genesis chapter 1 is the divine, Elohim. It has a masculine and feminine. Let us create the divine. And when Abel started killing the divine, God said, my spirit will not strive with humans. The very first time that word is used is just before God judges humans who kill the divine. And you let the murderers call you human rights. All you hear is human everywhere, humanism, transhumanism, human. And y'all like, yep, I'm a human being. God say you the divine. Humans will never rule. Humans will never go to the kingdom. Humans have never had a birthright. Humans, my spirit will not strive with humans. Genesis 6. Declaration of Human Rights. The United Nations is built off, the European Union is, the United Nations is built on human rights. That's why the United Nations is at war with the divine. That's why the United Nations has a plan to destroy the climate. They're attacking your water system. Already in Africa, they are charging people. They're impoverished and they're charging them to have clean drinking water. They are at war with the divine. Same humans. My spirit will not strive with humans. All of the divine have to go do is come together, Reclaim your birthrights. Reclaim your... They're human queens and fake father Roman Catholic Church go through the consecration process that you're supposed to take every one of your children through. We don't even use that term human, darling. You know why? Because God called us onyx. Human don't even describe the color. When God called the land of Cush in Genesis 2, he said there was the gemstone of onyx. The onyx stone matched the skin color of the divine beings that he created in his image. We don't even use the word human. Because the black beast that killed Abel shared the same skin color. We don't use that term. When Cain killed Abel, Cain had the same skin tone, and God had to mark his skin. Onyx means, he said, can an Ethiopian change his skin? Because he had already defined that the onyx of the gemstone matched the Ethiopian skin. They use all of them terms, black man and human. And listen, man, that's Latin. That comes from Latin, man. That's the Latin definition. Listen, that is not God's definition of us. We do not acknowledge being human being. He said, my spirit will not strive with humans. He said, can an Ethiopian change his skin? And he called that Ethiopian and that skin Cush. Go back and look at Genesis chapter 2. He ain't talking about humans. The only time he talk about humans is in Genesis 6. In Genesis 2, where he created Adam and Eve, he called the land Cush. He called the other land Havilah. Now, onyx gemstone, can an Ethiopian change his Cushite skin? No. Humans don't mean nothing to us. That's pig Latin. We don't acknowledge that at all. No way, shape, or form. Because you got Pan-Africans who are people of color who sold the Portuguese are blackamoors. That's who the humans are. The Portuguese blackamoors that signed the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1497 with Pope Alexander VI to go down into the subcontinent and bring to the coast all of the Kush, Nubian, Ethiopian skin tone, them blackamoor, Portuguese, humans, filled up Spanish, conquistador, transatlantic slave trade, boat after boat with their brothers and sisters. Them blackamoor, humans, men of color, did the same violation in the West that the people of Cain did before the flood, while God rained down judgment and drowned them and said, my spirit will not strive with humans. This is a family feud. This is a Cush on Cush crime. And the criminals of Cush are the humans. Says the word of God in Genesis 6. The divine, Noah, you are perfect in your generation. And then he called Noah a whole separate word, the renown. The men of old. So going back to Genesis 2, he said, Noah, you are perfect in your generation. My spirit will not strive with the humans who are unperfect. He said, you are the men of old, the men of renown. So that means go back to the beginning where I formed Adam in the dust of the earth. I called the land Cush. The people of Cush are called Nubians. They're called Diluvians. They're called Onyx. They're called Ethiopian. They called Ham. Nowhere. The individuals who was killing them came humans. Wasn't no Gentiles at the time. Wasn't no Europeans at the time. It was brothers, the same family line who had the same skin tone, and God separated them by calling one group perfect, the renowned, and the other group, he said, I regret that I allowed Cain to live when he killed Abel. My spirit will not strive with his children, the human beings. And you watch how they use that word. You watch how they use the National Black Caucus, how to use the NAACP. When they talk about human rights, they talking to the same sons of Cain that they use as weapons to kill the same people of color with their same skin tone for 30 pieces of silver, like the Hebrews used Judas against the Messiah. Same skin tone, same family group. Judas and the 12, Judas and James and John, same skin tone. Judas was a human. The Messiah was perfect, renowned. For the right price, humans will take your life. And God said, my spirit will not strive with humans. So you got humans today who will traffic your daughters. You got humans today who would take your family members and prostitute them for the right price. Them humans, they all in your neighborhood. They'll deal dope to you. They'll stick you up in your car. They'll take your life for $20, leave you dead on the street, and go get a high and a fix and come out and kill your sister when she come right behind you. That's what humans are. That's who humans are. Another term for human is the black man. Another term for human is the African. Another term for human is the Pan-African. Another term for human is, come on, man. It's that easy. It's that easy for them to keep selling us out for a price. And then they go to Fox News and they talk about black on black crime. All they're doing is talking about the humans that they got on the payroll to slaughter. The individuals that God said is perfect in his generation. The renowned, Cush. He said, I will put enmity between your seed and the serpent seed. Our problem is we will not maintain the enmity that God has put. We keep allowing them to lump all of us with a certain skin tone in together. And God is saying this is a spiritual family separation. This ain't got nothing to do with color. This is a family feud. And individuals who have my spirit, I call them perfect, renowned. The individuals who don't have my spirit because they are in open spiritual rebellion. Hello?